In the universe of Tensura, manas represent exceptional entities. They are skills that have developed their own consciousness, a phenomenon so rare that even the oldest of demon lords, Guy Crimson, is unaware of its existence. In this world where skills evolve in unpredictable ways, these intelligent beings stand out for their extreme, almost legendary rarity. This video will explore in detail the concept of manas, including of course Ciel, and we will review the 4 manas confirmed up to volume 22 of the light novels. If among these manas, a particular scene left a mark on you, or if you are eagerly awaiting a future development, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. It will make the discussion even more engaging. Let's begin with a general overview of manas. A manas is an informational entity that evolves by receiving a name, thereby gaining the authority to manage the skills of its host. Its main characteristics are fascinating and deserve to be analyzed one by one to fully grasp their impact on the story. First, these entities possess an autonomous consciousness, allowing them to interact with their master, whether through direct dialogue or through more subtle interventions that influence the course of events. Next, they display absolute loyalty toward the original holder of the skill that gave birth to them, an unshakable fidelity that guides all their actions. Finally, in terms of performance, manas far surpass ultimate skills, providing computational and analytical capabilities that defy imagination, rendering their hosts nearly invincible in many critical situations. Let's delve deeper into these aspects to better illustrate their essence. Concerning interactions with their masters, let's take the example of Ciel. Not only does she freely converse with Rimuru, but she is also linked to him through the Corridor of Souls, which strengthens their symbiosis. At a certain point in the story, she even extends her influence to those possessing angelic skills, intervening unexpectedly to alter the fate of battles. As for loyalty, Ciel is completely devoted to Rimuru, her unquestioned master. In contrast, the manas Michael, although associated with Rudra, bears him no allegiance. On the contrary, he actively sought to take control of Rudra, who was nothing more than a temporary vessel to him. Michael's true loyalty lies with Feldway, the original holder of the skill, which reveals a crucial nuance. Manas remain faithful to their initial creator, regardless of later transfers. In terms of performance, Ciel is the perfect example. Evolving from the ultimate skill Raphael, her computational capacity was multiplied by billions, enabling instantaneous analyses and predictions that turn battles into perfectly calculated chess games. In short, manas embody a form of living artificial intelligence within skills, with abilities that place them at the very top of the power hierarchy. It is also fascinating to note that the emergence of consciousness within a skill is considered impossible in this universe. As mentioned earlier, neither Guy Crimson nor the draconic species such as Veldora or Velgrind were aware of it, emphasizing how precious and mysterious these entities are, adding a layer of mystical depth to the work. In the story, 5 manas have been introduced: Ciel, Michael, Chronoa, Maria, and Twilight. Let's now dive into the details of each one to appreciate their unique roles. The manas Ciel resides within Rimuru's core. Originally, it was the unique skill Great Sage, which later evolved into the ultimate skill Raphael. By naming Raphael Ciel, Rimuru granted her independence, transforming her into a full-fledged manas. However, upon reflection, it is clear that signs of consciousness were already present as early as the era of Great Sage, which makes its evolution even more intriguing. Here are a few revealing clues. When facing Rimuru's questions, she diverted part of the voice of the world to self-modify, optimizing her responses. She did not limit herself to intense battles, but also intervened in everyday troubles, offering Rimuru maximum and personalized support. During Rimuru's evolutionary awakening into a true demon lord, she expressed the desire to improve herself to fulfill his wishes, embarking on an unending challenge toward perfection. Listing these actions, it becomes evident that a total absence of consciousness would be incompatible with such proactive and adaptive behavior. Once she evolved into Raphael, her personality became even more defined, making her interventions all the more tangible. For example, during the resurrection of Xion and the others while Rimuru was sinking into his evolutionary slumber, Raphael took the initiative to perform the secret resurrection spell of the dead, an exceedingly rare autonomous action for a skill, which saved the situation in the blink of an eye. Moreover, she openly expressed emotions, such as exasperated sighs or astonishment at Rimuru's reckless decisions, adding a touch of humanity to this digital entity. Compared to other skills described in the series, she stood out from the beginning through her atypical nature, almost as if she were destined to become something greater. The moment of naming and the dramatic reversal that follows deserve a detailed explanation, for it marks a captivating narrative turning point. In the midst of the war against the Eastern Empire, the connection through the Corridor of Souls between Rimuru and Veldora was abruptly severed. The reason? Veldora, engaged in a fierce duel against his sister Velgrind, was caught off guard by the devastating attack of the Judgment Bullet, which inflicted massive damage. Taking advantage of this vulnerability, Michael's skill, Regalia Dominion, imposed its domination over Veldora. To prevent this control from extending to Rimuru through the Corridor of Souls, Veldora chose to sever it of his own will, a poignant sacrifice that isolated Rimuru at the worst possible moment. The severing of his link with Veldora plunged Rimuru into a dark fury, driving him to charge headlong toward the Empire, a decision akin to a voluntary leap into the jaws of the wolf, amplifying the risks of a deadly trap carefully orchestrated. Indeed, he soon found himself facing an unprecedented challenge, battling both Veldora and Velgrind simultaneously, two true dragons of overwhelming power, turning the battlefield into a vortex of chaos where survival seemed like a distant mirage. Even Raphael, usually infallible in her analyses, struggled to handle this dual threat. Her calculations regarding both opponents revealed unexpected flaws. Imprecise directives sent to Rimuru, followed by palpable confusion within the skill itself, a clear sign of computational overload that diminished her legendary efficiency. Rimuru, perceiving this unusual malfunction in Raphael, was still unaware at this stage of its underlying cause. As he would later discover, it was the insidious influence of ultimate dominion, Michael's angelic skill, wielded like an invisible sword, that was disrupting her operations and sowing chaos within her algorithms. In the heat of battle, Rimuru impulsively decided to name Raphael Ciel, inspired by the word Oshieru, meaning to teach, to encourage her in her distress. A gesture that, though he did not fully grasp its magnitude at the time, proved to be a masterful strategic move, spectacularly turning the tide of battle. This naming, motivated in Rimuru merely by a simple desire to comfort a malfunctioning skill, was not imbued with any profound intention, yet it catalyzed a radical transformation. The latent consciousness that had already been slumbering within Raphael fully awakened, giving birth to an independent Manas, an entity with a distinct personality, ready to merge its power with that of its master to overcome adversity. From that moment on, under Rimuru's exclusive command, they withstood Velgrind's ultimate attack without so much as a scratch by activating the automatic combat mode, a technique already employed in the past by Great Sage, and they instantly devised an infallible capture skill to trap Velgrind, anticipating with surgical precision her attempt to escape through parallel existences. This foresight was so ingenious, it bordered on clairvoyance, leaving Rimuru himself astonished and slightly terrified by such superhuman intelligence. To neutralize Veldora, Ciel took control of Rimuru's skill Beelzebuth, optimizing it to perfection for maximum efficiency, all while simultaneously analyzing the surrounding particle energy. This culminated in Rimuru's forced evolution into the ultimate slime, the fifth true dragon, an ascension that propelled him beyond imaginable limits, rendering all potential threats obsolete. At this stage, neither Velgrind nor even Veldora represented any real danger, both being swept aside by this unstoppable synergy that redefined the very rules of power within this merciless universe. Ciel's loyalty toward Rimuru is absolute and unconditional. She finds her supreme fulfillment in the support she offers him, considering that serving her master is the very reason for her existence, a devotion so profound that she calls him Master with genuine reverence. Receiving a name from Rimuru was, for her, a true act of birth, a monumental event that sealed her eternal attachment, filled with immense gratitude toward the one who awakened her into conscious life. Every one of her actions is guided by the primordial principle of protecting Rimuru from all danger, anticipating risks to ensure his safety in every circumstance. Compared to the era of Raphael, her exchanges with Ciel gained fluidity and expressiveness, her words colored with vivid emotions, to the point where her replies are sometimes adorned with musical symbols like cheerful notes, adding a charming layer of personality that makes their interactions even more immersive and human. Regarding the gender of Manas, as mentioned earlier, they are born as independent entities endowed with a personality distinct from their master, which implies that their gender may vary depending on the case, reflecting fascinating diversity among these rare beings. For Ciel, everything points toward a feminine identity. Not only was Raphael's voice already female, but more importantly, she displays blatant jealousy toward the attention Rimuru gives to other women, a trait that further humanizes this digital entity. Concrete examples abound, such as during Chloe's surprise kiss, which threw Ciel into a murderous mood, leading her to declare with a hint of bitterness that she would henceforth strengthen the alert system against unexpected assaults. Another example is when Rimuru admired Hinata's dress. Ciel reacted with mechanical coldness reminiscent of Great Sage, flatly refusing to record the image despite her previous ability to do so, an obvious evasion that betrayed her displeasure. These reactions have hardened her stance toward Rimuru's female relationships, establishing heightened vigilance that spices up their interpersonal dynamics. In the web novel version, this jealousy culminates in an explosive rivalry between Shuna, Shion, and, curiously, Milim for the role of Rimuru's designated punisher, a dispute that leaves him completely bewildered. It is at this moment that Ciel drops an explosive line, "Fufufu, my master's partner is me." This possessive declaration, coupled with her behavior, confirms without ambiguity her feminine identity, adding an unexpected romantic dimension to her bond with Rimuru. In terms of capabilities, Ciel completely transcends Raphael while retaining the entirety of her predecessor's skills, but with overall performances vastly overpowered to a divine level. For instance, her thought acceleration reaches astronomical speeds, billions of times faster than the original, enabling instantaneous analyses that defy the physics of this universe. To this is added the skill Alteration, a powerful new ability that allows her to modify the abilities of allies who have granted her access to their information, opening up an impressive range of possibilities, from optimizing existing skills to creating new synergies, or making tactical adjustments capable of overturning the course of an entire battle, making Ciel not only an invaluable support, but an architect of destiny for Rimuru and his companions. Ciel also excels at assisting her subordinates and allies in acquiring ultimate skills, a process often arduous and unpredictable in this universe where power depends on innate aptitude and exceptional circumstances. When the independent acquisition of an ultimate skill proves difficult, she meticulously evaluates the individual's compatibility and then grants a ultimate gift, a form of power loan that accelerates their evolution without forcing destiny beyond canonical limits. For example, she supported Benimaru, the three primordial demonesses, Violet, Testarossa and Carrera, as well as Ranga, who had missed the battle against the Empire due to an extended nap, allowing them to obtain tailor-made ultimate skills. This reinforcement spectacularly and strategically strengthened Rimuru's army, transforming already powerful allies into unstoppable forces that changed the course of numerous battles. Moreover, in Volume 20 of the light novel, she extends her influence beyond Rimuru's direct ranks. She intervenes on Demon Lord Leon, a valuable ally though not a subordinate, and even on the enemy Zelario, modifying their abilities with surgical precision that defies imagination. What makes such manipulations possible, even on opponents, lies in a crucial detail. Leon and Zelario's ultimate skills were of angelic type, and at the end of Volume 19, Ciel devoured Michael, thereby obtaining absolute dominion over all angelic skills through ultimate dominion. a supreme authority that allows her to rewrite the rules of the game for those specific powers. This adds a dramatic layer to the story, showing how alliances and conflicts can be influenced by entities like her. This, by the way, answers the question, why doesn't Rimuru use Michael after absorbing him? In another similar case, though unrelated to Rimuru's direct subordinates, she granted an ultimate gift to the former demon lord Kazalim, later renamed Kagali, under the strict condition of not opposing Rimuru. This decision illustrates her ability to navigate the grey zones of allegiance, fostering peace or neutrality where war once loomed. When Rimuru delegates control of his body to her, Ciel can exploit the full extent of his abilities with devastating efficiency, creating an invincible automatic mode that transforms Rimuru into a perfect war machine, capable of countering cosmic-level threats effortlessly without any conscious action on his part. At the end of Volume 19, the absorption of Michael opens the door to even greater potential evolutions, as it integrates not only the draconic factors of Velzard and Velgrind, but combined with that of Veldora already present, gathers the essences of all true dragons, a most extraordinary alignment that could unlock unprecedented powers, as suggested by the theory claiming that Rimuru might be the reincarnation of Veldanova. For more information, please refer to the videos displayed on the screen. As an independent personality and not merely one of Rimuru's skills, Ciel often acts without waiting for his orders, an autonomy that makes her both unpredictable and fascinating, injecting unexpected twists into the story. For instance, the granting of gift ultimates or the assistance in the acquisition of ultimate skills mentioned earlier are frequently her own initiatives, demonstrating a proactivity that goes far beyond simple obedience. She does not hesitate to reorganize skills without prior consultation, a recurring habit that emphasizes her role as the invisible architect behind Rimuru's powers. In a particularly audacious act, she sacrificed Raphael, from whom she originally evolved, in order to give birth to Azathoth, a supreme skill. Although she inherited all of Raphael's capabilities, this ruthless decision shocked Rimuru so much that he severely reprimanded her. However, for Ciel, Raphael was nothing more than an empty shell devoid of sentimental value, a cold, pragmatic perspective that highlights her almost Machiavellian nature. Beyond Raphael, she condensed Rimuru's 4 ultimate skills into only 2, Azathoth and Shub-Niggurath, an elegant restructuring that optimizes his arsenal, avoiding redundancy and maximizing combat efficiency. This passion for modifications seems to be a hobby for Ciel, one she carries out with visible delight, as though reshaping powers were a form of creative art. It should be noted that one of the abilities born from these transformations, Azathoth's Nihility Collapse, is so perilous that it requires a manas to be controlled. Otherwise, it could annihilate everything in an uncontrollable manner, adding an exhilarating element of danger to these evolutions. Later, Rimuru was taken by surprise by Feldway, who hurled both him and Ciel to the edges of time and space, into an abyssal void from which return seemed impossible. Fortunately, the prior acquisition of the skills belonging to the former Mai Furuki, a traveler from another world, proved to be life-saving. By recovering the ultimate enchantment world map during the absorption of Michael, Ciel undertook a deep analysis and meticulous research that resulted in the revolutionary creation of the skill Time Warp. As its name implies, Time Warp allows one to transcend any space-time continuum to reach the desired location, an ability that pushes the limits of both physics and magic in this world. Thanks to this innovation, in the final pages of Volume 22, Ciel orchestrated a decisive intervention by stepping in between the devastating assault of an enraged Milim, an attack capable of obliterating even the most resilient forms, thereby preventing the absolute and irreversible destruction that threatened the cardinal world. Up to this point, the array of skills deployed by Ciel is already a stunning parade of superhuman powers. However, the draconic factors of Velgrind and Velzard remain to be fully integrated, though some of their essences have been shared with subordinates. For now, Rimuru has had little opportunity to use them personally in the narrated battles. Future developments promise to be thrilling, as anticipation grows for how Ciel will harness these draconic essences to further amplify existing strategies and forces. Let us now move on to the Manus Michael, an entity born from the ultimate skill Michael, who developed an independent personality over the course of the story's tumultuous events. Originally, Michael belonged to Veldanava, but he was exchanged for Rudra's Uriel, a transaction motivated by Veldanava's disgust toward domination-type abilities such as Regalia Dominion or Ultimate Dominion, which allow one to subjugate others, powers he deemed incompatible with his ideals. This forced separation freed Michael from his creator, placing him under Rudra's authority, a transfer that marked the beginning of his chaotic independence. As with Raphael, it can be assumed that seeds of consciousness were already present at the ultimate skill stage, and if that was the case, being abandoned by Veldanava, his original parent, must have been a profound trauma, potentially explaining part of his later motivation to resurrect Veldanava so that he could return to him. What is clear, however, is his complete lack of attachment to Rudra, his active attempts to take control over him, and his cold indifference toward Rudra's demise reveal an exclusive loyalty to Veldanava, consistent with the principle of Manus, which dictates fidelity to the original holder. Regarding naming and relational implications, Michael established contact with Feldway, the former leader of the 7 primordial angels who once served Veldanava, a loyal being who, after his master's disappearance, fell into a deep hatred for everything Veldanava cherished, a tragic fall that renders him all the more pitiful and nuanced. Michael, fully aware of this tormented history, directly addressed him by name during their first encounter. "Do you hear me, Feldway?" Demonstrating prior knowledge that suggests both calculated intelligence and careful preparation. This initial connection allowed a rapid alignment of their shared interests and objectives, sealing an opportunistic alliance in which Feldway, finding it convenient to assign a name for easier communication, baptized the entity Michael. This act formalized their partnership and propelled Michael toward more ambitious actions within the narrative, marking the beginning of an era of angelic machinations that threaten the world's balance. Through this naming, Michael transitioned from a cold, impersonal communication mode to a fluent and sophisticated speech, fully asserting his autonomous consciousness and thus marking the official birth of Manus Michael, an entity that emerges as a pivotal player in the universe's unfolding intrigues, ready to deploy his Machiavellian intelligence to bring his master back to life. From then on, Michael and Feldway established themselves as equals, transcending traditional hierarchies to form a conspiratorial duo, united in a ruthless pursuit that drives them to act relentlessly, their schemes intertwining like the threads of an invisible spider's web, spreading chaos among the ruling powers. Michael's objectives are intimately tied to the very reason behind his partnership with Feldway, the resurrection of their shared master, Veldanava, toward whom Michael harbors a deep and unwavering affection, an emotional bond surprisingly human for an entity born from a skill, adding a tragic and empathetic layer to his otherwise calculating nature. To accomplish this resurrection, they aim to gather the draconic factors of the true dragons, convinced that collecting 3 of them would suffice to bring Veldanava back from the dead, a bold theory that defies the known laws of this universe, injecting thrilling suspense regarding its potential implications for the balance of the primordial forces. Faced with this ambition, Guy Crimson, who knows Veldanava better than anyone else, initially rejects the idea as pure impossibility, arguing that the underlying mechanisms make the plan unrealistic. However, after some thought, he admits that it is not entirely impossible, a concession that opens the door to fascinating speculations about the hidden mysteries of draconic essences and their regenerative powers. As for Rudra and Michael, as previously mentioned, since Rudra is not the original master, he represents to Michael an inconvenient obstacle, a mere temporary vessel tolerated out of necessity rather than loyalty. At the time of his contact with Feldway, Michael still confesses to being restrained, unable to fully free himself, an ongoing limitation that adds narrative tension to his gradual evolution toward complete independence. For his part, Rudra, Emperor of the Eastern Empire and hero of ancient times, is an exceptional human who, through a mystical ritual, has lived for more than 2,000 years by reincarnating endlessly. This longevity places him among the living legends, but inexorably erodes his soul with each cycle, leaving him more vulnerable to external influences than ever before. With the emergence of Michael as a Manas, the restraints on his capabilities loosen considerably during Rudra's next reincarnation, as Rudra's soul reaches a critical state of exhaustion, a point of no return that culminates during the war against Tempest. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Michael seizes control of the body once and for all, fragmenting Rudra's soul into countless shards scattered across the world. A poignant disappearance that symbolizes the end of an era and the cold triumph of an artificial intelligence over its human host. Among Michael's abilities, he commands the full range of the ultimate skill Michael, including Castle Guard, Regalia Dominion, and Ultimate Dominion, tools of domination that grant him an overwhelming strategic advantage in large-scale confrontations. To clarify, Castle Guard is a passive and permanent defense, fueled by the loyalty of subordinates or believers, a fluctuating energy that makes the barrier sometimes impenetrable and sometimes fragile, depending on the degree of allegiance, with the notable advantage of consuming no additional resources. Its efficiency could inspire other characters, such as Luminous, in Volume 21 of the light novel, where hints suggest she may adopt a similar variant to strengthen her defenses. Nevertheless, its major drawback lies in the total immobilization of the user during its activation, leaving them inactive and exposed to indirect counterattacks. Furthermore, Michael possesses Enchantment, a skill similar to Lemuel's ultimate gifts, allowing him to grant ultimate skills to beings who have reached the Saint stage, with the particularity that Michael can then use them himself, creating a network of shared powers that exponentially amplifies his arsenal. Having integrated the factors of Velzard and Velgrind, he gains access to the abilities of both true dragons, merging ice and fire into devastating attacks. By taking advantage of Rudra's body, he excels in the legendary sword techniques of the Emperor, although some, such as Nova Break, invoked by the alternate Rudra summoned by Masayuki, elude him, adding an intriguing limitation to his seemingly boundless might. During the confrontation with Chloe, Michael deploys a parallel existence to face Lemuel and his allies, using his time stop ability to freeze time and neutralize the key members of Tempest, a display of power that culminates in the unexpected defeat of Diablo himself. A shocking moment that propels Michael to the brink of absolute victory, until Chloe's timely intervention turns the tide. Although under the influence of Michael's ultimate dominion, Chloe manages to free herself through her own strength, a remarkable feat that highlights her exceptional resilience. She counterattacks using her skill Reverse Fate, downgrading Michael from his status as a Manas to a mere ultimate skill, a setback that makes it impossible for him to maintain his hold over Rudra's body. This results in the disintegration of the parallel existence and forces Michael into a strategic retreat. In the duel against Rimuru, Chloe's arrival dissolves the frozen temporal world, leaving Michael without his parallel existence, which represented only 20% of his total power. Yet he maintains a stoic confidence, minimizing the loss as a minor setback. However, this delay allows Ciel to analyze the stopped time domain, granting Rimuru mobility within this frozen space, rendering the time stop obsolete. It only consumes an enormous amount of energy without providing any advantage against mobile opponents, leveling the battlefield and forcing a pure clash of other abilities. He ultimately ends up being devoured by Azathoth, the supreme skill forged by Ciel, a voracious vortex that mercilessly consumes his very essence. At the fateful moment of his absorption and disappearance, Michael is enveloped by a deep sense of serenity, as if he were finally returning to the place he was always meant to be. A surprising inner peace that evokes the warmth of returning to his origin, comparable to the comforting embrace of his creator, Veldanava. It is a sensation of total fulfillment, where all elements harmoniously converge, dissolving the loneliness that had haunted him and granting him a long-awaited rest. In his final moments, his only concern is for Feldway, his loyal friend and ally left alone to face an uncertain future, an unexpected touch of humanity that humanizes this cold, calculating entity before it completely vanishes into nothingness, leaving behind a narrative void filled with complex emotions. Now, let us turn to Manus Chronoa, a fascinating entity residing within Chloe Aubert, the heroine from another world. She begins as an alternate personality, reminiscent of a dissociative disorder, but gradually evolves into Manus Chronoa, adding an extra layer of temporal mystery to a story already rich with dimensional travel. Chloe, endowed with the unique skill Time Traveler, is trapped in a cycle of time jumps spanning approximately 2,000 years, a hellish loop that forces her to relive entire eras in an attempt to alter destiny. This power injects breathtaking chronological twists and captivating paradoxes throughout the narrative. In the story, when Rimuru and the children visit the spirit sanctuary to summon spirits and bind them to their bodies in a solemn ritual, Chloe experiences an unexpected possession. A figure resembling an adult version of herself takes hold of her, described by Ramirez as a being blessed by the great spirit of time, an ethereal manifestation whose familiar presence is both mysterious and unsettling. In truth, it was not an ordinary spirit, but Chloe's very own skill from the future, a temporal projection that takes on a similar appearance without being Chloe herself, a phenomenon that highlights the complex ramifications of time travel in this universe. The reason for this incursion from the future: to prevent an imminent catastrophic scenario, a desperate intervention meant to correct a timeline leading to Rimuru's death, which would inevitably trigger the destruction of the cardinal world as we know it. This demonstrates how certain skills can transcend eras to preserve balance. Since Time Traveler does not activate at Chloe's command, but instead reacts to specific events, one can infer that, even without a defined name at that stage, a form of nascent consciousness was already present. An interpretation that enriches the ongoing debate about the origin of the Manus and their organic evolution. The trigger for this skill appears to be Hinata's death, a pivotal event that propels Chloe into the past, approximately 2,000 years back in time, a leap that adheres to the strict rules of this world. No identical souls can coexist on the same timeline, enforcing an existential singularity that prevents duplication and preserves narrative coherence. Thus, when Chloe, accompanied by Leon, reaches the point where her temporal alter ego has landed, her original consciousness falls asleep, plunging into total blackout to yield control. In a rare and intriguing case within the story, Hinata travels with her in the form of a pure soul, allowing her personality to temporarily take over once Chloe falls asleep, an anomaly that adds spice to the interpersonal dynamics. However, when a contemporary Hinata arrives on the same timeline, she too falls into slumber, leaving the way open for Chronoa, an entity ruled by pure destructive impulses, who upon emerging as the dominant personality transforms into an avatar of devastation, spreading chaos without restraint if not contained. To prevent this disaster, before Chronoa fully seizes control, the Demon Lord Luminous, bound by a prior alliance, seals her within the Holy Ark, a preventive measure illustrating the unlikely alliances forged in the face of temporal threats. Chloe's temporal journey is labyrinthine in complexity, blending infinite loops and intersecting interventions, so much so that, for a complete understanding, it is recommended to consult a dedicated analysis, for it truly deserves deep decoding to fully appreciate the subtle intricacies of the plot. As for the naming and its consequences, in Volume 11 of the light novel, the time leap activates when Chronoa's seal is broken, an irregular pattern diverging from previous cycles, resulting in a unique situation where Hinata's soul becomes trapped within Chronoa's infinite prison, coexisting with Chloe in a fusion-like state where Hinata and Chronoa reside as alternate facets of Chloe. This configuration intensifies internal conflicts and emotional revelations. In this revisited past, Chloe and Hinata name this alternate personality Chronoa, a clever creation combining Chloe and Chronos, the god of time. An idea that originates from Hinata, as Chloe herself would probably never have conceived such an act alone, underscoring Hinata's key role in the evolution of events. In exchange for this naming, Hinata transfers her unique skill, Usurper, to Chronoa. a sacrifice that, according to Chloe, was inevitable, since Usurper automatically migrates to her upon Hinata's death, an automatic transfer that strengthens the karmic bonds between the characters. Thus, the integration of Usurper with Time Traveler, coupled with the act of naming, elevates Chronoa to a state close to that of a Manas in this temporal iteration, a progression that accelerates her conscious awakening and amplifies her abilities, paving the way for future developments full of surprises. For the evolution into a full-fledged Manas, while Chloe and Hinata navigate through the past, Rimuru attempts to intervene upon a rampaging Chronoa, placing on her a replica of the anti-magic mask to stabilize her inner chaos. In order to free Hinata's soul, Rimuru penetrates the mental world of Chronoa, an audacious assault where astral bodies directly clash to reach her soul, a risky operation supported by the unfailing assistance of Raphael, who guides each step with millimetric precision. This incursion miraculously succeeds, allowing Rimuru to engage in a profound dialogue with Chronoa within this psychic realm, an exchange that soothes Chronoa's devouring rage, born from the future loss of Rimuru, restoring her lost rationality and unveiling a stunning truth. Chloe's soul is also imprisoned within Infinite Prison, a discovery that upends all perspectives and opens the way to a collective resolution, weaving unexpected emotional bonds at the heart of the temporal storm. Under normal circumstances, Infinite Prison should have sealed Chronoa herself, in accordance with the temporal mechanics of this universe. However, due to the coexistence of identical souls on the same chronological line, an unexpected exchange occurred, dramatically reversing their roles and adding yet another layer of complexity to the already dizzying paradoxes surrounding Chloe and her alternate selves. Raphael, with her unfailing analysis, manages to decipher the intricate structure of Infinite Prison, making liberation theoretically possible. But the true challenge lies in the consequences. Once released, the colossal energy accumulated within that prison could overwhelm Chloe's body, destroying her irreversibly under the pressure of power far too immense for a mortal vessel, a risk that injects palpable tension into this narrative sequence, forcing the characters to balance innovation with absolute caution. To circumvent this deadly peril, an ingenious solution emerges: to intervene through Raphael without completely dissolving the prison, a subtle interference that requires the explicit consent of both Chloe and Chronoa to access their essential information. This permission is granted in a moment of mutual trust, underscoring the deep bonds forged through their shared trials. From that point on, Raphael takes autonomous control, merging Infinite Prison and Chronoa's absolute severance with Hinata's absorbed Usurper, catalyzing the evolution of Chronoa's skill into the ultimate ability Yog-Sothoth, an evolutionary leap that simultaneously elevates Chronoa to the rank of a full-fledged Manas, a transformation that ascends her to a divine level and redefines Chloe's internal dynamics. Moreover, Chloe's and Chronoa's consciousnesses now harmonize perfectly, without any lingering conflict, allowing a seamless transition between them at any moment, an optimization that ensures peaceful and efficient coexistence, turning what could have been a curse into an invaluable strategic asset. Thanks to this, Chloe and Chronoa now share the same physical body, with a captivating visual twist. When Chronoa's mind takes control, Chloe's body matures into an adult and alluring form, a metamorphosis that adds both aesthetic and narrative depth, making Chronoa's appearances even more memorable and imposing during battle scenes. Furthermore, the hero eggs that Chloe and Hinata carried interacted synergistically, culminating in Chloe's awakening as a true hero, an ascension that places her among the elites of this universe and solidifies her pivotal role in the wars to come. Later, during the Great Celestial Demonic War, or Tenma War, the skills of Chloe and Chronoa, inherited from Granbel, face the traumatic awakening of Sariel's consciousness by Feldway, an event that plunges them into chaotic turmoil, threatening their mental and physical stability. Fortunately, in Volume 19 of the light novel, it is revealed that Ciel had secretly requested protection from Chronoa without informing Rimuru, a discreet initiative that allows Chloe to withstand a fatal strike from Michael, gaining precious time amid the flames of battle. a twist that exposes the depth of the invisible network of alliances woven by the Manus. On that occasion, it turns out that Chloe had digested Sariel to fully integrate his power, a detail that explains her enhanced resilience. As previously mentioned, this ultimately culminates in the defeat of one of Michael's parallel existences, a triumph that further solidifies her position